One Nation's Barnaby Joyce joins me now. I presume you were watching that in the chamber. I didn't see your face. Has Angus Taylor done anything to steal the march back from One Nation tonight?
Well, I think they should acknowledge One Nation policies past, present and emerging. It's very important, and I'd like to thank them for basically reading off the One Nation script. Look, I never run a person to the dirt. You know, it was a fair effort, and obviously it's game on, isn't it? And that's what this is about. Politics is game on.
We were just discussing one of the statements there. So there's the Angus Taylor saying they're going to make the biggest cut to immigration, one of the biggest cuts ever seen in Australia. They want to change the policy for permanent residents and their access to welfare. These are both policies close to yours. But have you ever seen the coalition in your time in politics pushed so far to the right on immigration as they appear to be now?
No. I mean, you know, but the circumstances. I mean, circumstances in Australia have changed, and I think everybody, even the Labor Party, are accepting that dynamic. I think the Australian people they don't want to see the egalitarian nature that we have that works within strong guardrails, and that becomes between people of all creeds, all sexualities, and they feel a threat to that. They feel uncomfortable about where it's off to, and they're demanding of governments of all ilks to give them a sense of security.
Just on a personal matter, if they had adopted immigration policies like these, would you have stayed with the coalition?
It was beyond that, Sarah. It was, unfortunately, I don't sort of want to sort of
No, I don't want to revisit that, but I just want to know if that makes you reconsider.
At that time, my relationship with the leadership of the National Party completely disintegrated. It was neither becoming of me nor of the people that I was dealing with for me to hang around. And also, my biggest issue then would have been on a policy basis, climate policy, which was absolutely decimating New England because of the renewable energy zones that were being foisted on us to assuage the virtue of people who never actually had to live.
Right, let's go back to Angus Taylor's speech, because one of the discussions we were having just now is around cuts to immigration.
Yep.
You have policies too on reducing the number. How your policy has a number attached to it. But what I wanted to understand from him was which levers he was going to pull in immigration, and I didn't get a straight answer on that. How do you target those low net overseas migration numbers with very large cuts in them, as you have, as the Liberal Party now is, without pulling a lever on skilled migration?
Well, I think that, as what we've said all the way along, we look at a stock take of what Australia can absorb. As we know, we've been bringing in about the population of Canberra a year. It's sort of waned a little bit lately, but we just didn't have the houses, we didn't have the schools, we certainly didn't have the dams, we didn't have the universities, we didn't have the hospitals. And as Australian people were waiting in emergency departments and, you know, finding...
I'm going to ask you the same question that I pressed Angus Taylor on. How are you pulling, which lever are you pulling? Where are you getting your very large cuts in net overseas migration from? There's only a few places it can come from.
So what you do is you see the requirements that you have. If it's boilermakers, if it's fitters and turners, for which, for instance, they say builders, a very small portion of our immigration is a tiny portion is builders that come in.
Not what the Master Builders Association says.
Well,
migration has been central to the success of the construction industry.
But only a very small portion of the total immigration are registered qualified builders, okay? And that is just a fact. So if builders is what you need, then when you go for a visa to come to Australia, then builders are what we are looking for. If it's a boilermaker, then boilermaker is what we are looking for. We have to be more stringent in our assessment of what those visa categories are, and also, of course, and this is where One Nation will sort of annoy people, is if we believe that you're coming from an area of the world that is febrile, that there is a higher potential of the problems there becoming part of Australia's problems. Well, we don't want those problems, and so they're precluded from coming forward.
That's the Liberal Party's bad countries notion. Let's not relitigate that. The question I was trying to get at is, where are you making your cuts? Because there are only a few places you can cut net overseas migration. Well, overseas students, skilled migration, You know what the categories are.
Well,
Where are you getting
I
your
think within the
numbers from?
policy document we see that we feel that there's a lot of so-called students that arrive in Australia and not actually students.
So
that
students
that
is
would be
your-
that would be an area where we certainly would be a lot more forensic in our assessment, because if you're coming in here as a student, that is not low-skilled jobs around Sydney.
All right, let's talk about what happens next. If One Nation's rise continues
Yep.
on the trajectory that it's on at the moment, would One Nation work with the Liberals as a junior party in coalition?
Okay.
Things are changing fast, are they not?
Yeah, well, the polls tonight, and I'm not hubristic, this is the polls tonight, it has us leading the Labor Party. So what we would do is we would offer supply and confidence to people who would take on board our policy structure. We do not want the prizes, we do not want the ministries. So you can keep all the prizes, but there'll be certain policy outcomes, for instance, scrapping the Climate Change Department or climate change policy, and reallocating those resources to where they better suit Australia. And if you don't want to contend with our policy requirements, then I suppose you get your fate tested in Parliament on a regular basis. We don't want that. That would be chaotic. So yes, we're quite prepared to work, but not to the extent of a coalition, because that presumes that you're in cabinet and everything like that. No, we would have our policy requirements that we believe best for Australia. Then we don't have to worry about cabinet solidarity. It's quite a clear-cut deal, and you and the Fourth Estate will see that deal.
And just very briefly to wrap up, do you think that Angus Taylor has stopped the flow towards you tonight with his speech? In brief.
No.
No, that's a no from Barnaby Joyce. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.